So in regards to the detection of these risks, there's a number of different ways that they show up in our system in regards to alerts or events. So looking at the recent events view, which is this widget here underneath the endpoint directory, I can look at that or sort that by a number of different time intervals. So I can look at them over the last 48 hours, or I can drill down into even as recent as the last hour. But you can see that this summary shows a number of different changes, in the network. Another view is this line chart view, where if I mouse over it, you can see that at 9:30, I've had 6 new events and 16 profile changes, as well as a number of other, events. If I drill down deeper, however, I can go to the endpoint console and view endpoint events. And this is going to be a table view of all events that the system has seen during the amount of time that we're actually archiving. So by looking at this view, I can quickly scan through and I can see that I've detected a new Cisco device, a Cisco Linksys Mac vendor, that matched the GBS rogue device profile. It's absolute paramount importance to detect rogue devices in real time. But it's even more important to understand where exactly those devices are located. So within the event view itself, we have a variety of different information parameters. So we know the event type, we know the name, we know the MAC address and MAC vendor, the profile that it resides in. But again, most importantly, we understand what and where that device is located down to the switch port level. So I can see that it's attached to this test switch by this IP address and that interface. If I simply click on the MAC, which is a hyperlink, I can drill down deeper and find out more information. So I haven't seen an IP address from this device yet, which isn't surprising because if you look down a little bit further, you can see that it's actually failed to authenticate, which is great. So I know that the risk is maybe a little bit lessened by the fact that it can't communicate on the network. But the fact that a rogue showed up in any case is still, unnerving and in need of some additional forensics and checking into. And the current location is actually interface 3 on that switch. So you can notice that as I mouse over it, this is a hyperlink. I can drill down deeper and get into the actual switch view. So I can see that interface 3 has that device that's been identified as a rogue, but I have a number of other trusted devices too, a clinical laptop as well as a couple of IP phones. If I log into the actual switch for a second and do a show auth sessions, you can see that I have 3 successful, 2 in the voice domain, which are the 2 IP phones, and then 1 failed and 1 device in the data domain. So clearly that's the clinical laptop in the data domain, the 2 Polycom phones in the voice, and then of course the failure is that rogue device. Again, which is great. I'm able to detect it. I know exactly where it's located. I can actually dispatch somebody if I want, or walk over and find out where exactly that drop is. But in any case, it's not authenticating, so I know that it's been isolated and can't do us any further harm. So that's great in regards to rogues that are on an authenticating network, but what do we do about the device or a device such as the clinical laptop if it behaves in a way that's unexpected or behaves in a way that it just shouldn't? So in this case, what I'm going to do is, you can see that I've got a continuous ping to that device. I'm going to pause for a moment and log into that clinical laptop. And I'm basically going to communicate with a router interface, something that a clinical laptop should never do. And in turn, what should happen is that device, that behavior should be detected, correlated with that device, and we should dynamically reprofile it into a less trusted or untrusted profile, which we'll see in just a moment. Okay, great. So you can see from the continuous ping that network disruption, that device is actually no longer connected to the network. So I can no longer communicate with it. If I log back in or move back over to the switch view and do a show authenticated sessions, you can see that interface 3 is now in a running state. Interface 7 has moved into a failed state. So the clinical laptop has actually moved from a trusted device into an untrusted, and therefore it's failed. If I navigate back to our UI and do a refresh, I can see that the reason that it's failing is now that it's moved from a trusted clinical laptop into a profile labeled bad endpoint. If I drill down into this guy, again, I can see that it's in the bad endpoint profile. And if I drill down slightly deeper, I can see that there are specific rules looking for that anomalous behavior. Jumping back into the endpoint events, It's important to note that you can actually send these events outbound to a number of different systems. The delivery methods there could be an SNMP trap, it could be syslog off to a SIM, or we could even send an email alert off to the SOC when we want certain people to understand that either a new device has shown up or whatever that event might be. And lastly, not really covered as part of this demonstration is within each of those events, we do have a number of different active responses as well. Anything in regards to enforcement is actually covered in another demonstration. But again, as you can see, that there are a number of different ways that we can utilize the network intelligence platform to detect and mitigate a number of different threats out there across the network fabric.